Kira's silver eyes were no longer cold. They were no longer empty. As she looked up at Doyen, something changed in them. Something broke open. Something that had been locked away for a very long time. Her hands began to shake Dot at first. Do-hyun thought she was angry. He stepped back, suddenly afraid that he had made a terrible mistake. Maybe she did not want his gift. Maybe he had offended her. Maybe the Valari saw gifts as insults. But then he saw her eyes. They were wet. Do-hyun stared. He could not believe what he was seeing. Tears were forming in Kira's silver eyes. Real tears. Clear liquid that gathered at the corners and then spilled over, running down her pale cheeks like tiny rivers. "That is impossible," Kira whispered. Her voice was shaking. "We cannot. The Valari cannot." She touched her own face with trembling fingers. She felt the wetness there. Her expression was one of total confusion and fear, like a child who has woken up in a strange place and does not know how they got there. "I am crying," she said. The words came out broken and confused. "I have never. No Valari has cried for 10,000 years. We removed this. We evolved past this. This should not be possible." Do-hyun did not know what to do. He had not expected this. He had hoped that the gift would make her happy. He had hoped that maybe she would smile. But he had never imagined this. "Kira," he said gently, "are you okay?" She laughed then. It was a strange sound, high and uneven. It did not sound like someone who knew how to laugh. It sounded like someone who was learning to laugh for the first time. "Okay?" She repeated. "I do not know. I do not know what I am. I do not know what is happening to me." She looked down at the preserved lily in her shaking hands. More tears fell from her eyes, dropping onto the clear resin like rain on glass. "All my life, I was taught that emotions were primitive," she said. Her voice was quiet now, almost a whisper. "I was taught that feelings were weaknesses that held species back. The Valari evolved past them. We became pure logic, pure reason. That was supposed to make us better, stronger." She looked up at Do-hyun. Her silver eyes were filled with tears and confusion and something else. Something that looked like wonder. "But you humans," she continued, "you feel everything. You love and hate. You cry and laugh. You do things that make no logical sense, just because they feel right. And you are not weak at all. You are beautiful." Do-hyun felt his own eyes growing wet. He blinked hard to keep from crying himself. "Kira," he said, "what you are feeling right now is okay. It is normal. It is what it means to be alive." "But it hurts," Kira said. "Why does it hurt?" "I feel something in my chest. Something heavy. Something that aches. I do not understand it." Do-hyun took a step closer to her. Slowly, gently, he reached out and took her hand. Her silver skin was cool against his warm fingers. "That feeling is called many things," he said softly. "Sadness, loneliness, maybe even grief. You are feeling what you have been missing for 10,000 years. All the joy and sorrow that your people locked away. It is all coming back, and it hurts because you are not used to it." Kira looked at their joined hands. More tears fell from her eyes. "I have been so empty," she whispered. "For so long. I did not even know it. I thought I was complete. I thought I was perfect. But I was just hollow, a shell with nothing inside." She held up the preserved lily with her other hand. The white flower glowed softly in the light from the window. The stars behind it made it look like it was floating in space. "No one has ever given me something like this," she said. "In my entire life, no one has ever given me something just because they wanted to. Everything on Valari is a transaction. Everything has a purpose. Everything must be earned." Her voice broke. "I did not earn this. I did nothing to deserve it. You gave it to me just because you matter, Do-yoon finished for her. That is all the reason I need. Kira closed her eyes. The tears kept falling. Her whole body was shaking now, like a tree in a strong wind. Do-hyun could see that she was fighting with herself. Part of her wanted to feel these emotions. Another part was terrified of them. He did not let go of her hand. I am afraid, Kira admitted. I do not know what I am becoming. If my people knew about this, if they saw me crying, what would happen? Do-hyun asked. Kira opened her eyes. They would think I was broken, defective. They would try to fix me. They would take away these feelings, like they took them away from all of us so long ago. Is that what you want? Do-hyun asked. Do you want them to take these feelings away? Kira was silent for a long moment. She looked at the lily in her hand. She looked at her tears reflecting on its surface. She looked at Do-hyun, standing there with his warm hand holding hers. No, she said finally. I do not want that. Even though it hurts. Even though I am scared. I do not want to go back to being empty. Do-hyun smiled. It was a small, warm smile. Then do not go back. Take this feeling with you. Let it grow. Let yourself feel things, even if they are confusing. Even if they hurt sometimes. That is what it means to be truly alive. My people will not understand, Kira said. Then show them, Do-hyun replied. Show them that they lost something precious when they removed their emotions. Show them that feelings are not weaknesses. Show them what they could become if they let themselves feel again. Kira looked at him with wonder in her wet eyes. You really believe that, do you not? You believe that one person can change an entire species. One person can do many things, Do-hyun said. And it does not have to be just you. Start small. Show one person. Then that person shows another. Eventually, everyone knows. He squeezed her hand gently. That is how humans have always changed things. One small act at a time. One kind word. One simple gift. The big things are just made of many small things put together. Kira looked down at the lily again. She held it close to her chest, pressing it against her heart. I will keep this forever, she said. And I will remember. I will remember the human who gave me something for no reason at all. The human who taught me that I was allowed to feel. She stepped forward and did something that surprised both of them. She put her arms around Do-hyun and held him close. It was an awkward hug. She clearly did not know how to do it properly. Her arms were stiff and her body was tense, but it was real. It was her first hug in a lifetime of never being touched. Do-hyun hugged her back. He could feel her shaking against him. He could feel the wetness of her tears on his shoulder. He held her gently, like something precious that might break. Thank you, Kira whispered against his neck. Thank you for seeing me. For really seeing me. No one has ever done that before. You are welcome, Do-hyun whispered back. And Kira? You are going to be okay. I promise. She pulled back and looked at him. Her silver eyes were red from crying. Her pale face was wet with tears. She looked nothing like the cold, logical diplomat he had first seen 3 months ago. She looked like someone who had just been born. Someone who was seeing the world for the first time. Will I ever see you again? She asked. Do-hyun smiled. The universe is big, but it is also small. Who knows what might happen? Kira almost smiled back. It was a real smile this time. Small and unsure, but real. I hope so, she said. I hope I see you again, Do-hyun. You are, my friend. That is another word I never used before. But it feels right. It is right, Do-hyun agreed. And yes, we are friends. No matter how far apart we are. The party was ending around them. The other delegates were leaving, heading to their ships. Soon the station would be empty again. Kira looked at the lily one more time. Then she carefully put it in the pocket of her silver robes, close to her heart. "Goodbye, Do-hyun," she said. "And thank you for everything." She turned and walked away. Her silver robes flowed behind her like water. She did not look back. But Do-hyun knew that she would remember this moment for the rest of her life. And so would he. The weeks passed slowly on Horizon Station. The meetings continued day after day. The delegates argued about trade routes and resource prices. They made agreements and broke them. They talked and talked and talked. Do-hyun did his job. He took notes. He fixed translation devices. He brought coffee and water to the senior diplomats. But now, he also watched Kira. He did not stare at her. That would have been rude and obvious. Instead, he watched her in small moments. When she was not looking. When she thought no one was paying attention to her. And what he saw made him more curious than ever. Kira was always alone. This was true. She did not join the other delegates for meals. She did not talk to them during breaks. She sat by herself and worked on her tablet, reviewing documents and sending messages to her homeworld. But there were moments when she stopped working. Moments when she would look up from her tablet and stare at something. And in those moments, Do-hyun saw something in her silver eyes. Something that looked almost like longing. The first time he noticed this was during a break between meetings. The delegates had gathered around a table where the Becky representative was showing pictures of his new grandchildren. The small furry creatures in the pictures were playing in a garden, their little paws covered in dirt. Everyone was laughing and making happy sounds. Even the logical tyrannies seemed amused. But Kira sat alone at her seat, her tablet forgotten in her hands. She was watching the others, watching the way they smiled and laughed together. And there was something in her face. Just for a moment. Something that was not cold or logical at all. Then she noticed Do-hyun looking at her. Her expression closed like a door shutting. She looked back down at her tablet and did not look up again. Do-hyun said nothing. But he remembered. The second time was a week later. Horizon Station had a small garden in the center level. It was nothing special by Earth standards. Just some plants in boxes, a small fountain, and a few benches. The humans had built it because they missed green things. Being in space for too long made people sad, and plants helped with that. Do-hyun went to the garden on his lunch break. He liked to eat his sandwich there, surrounded by green leaves and the sound of water. It made him feel less far from home. When he arrived, he saw Kira standing at the edge of the garden. She was not inside it. She was standing just outside the entrance, looking in. She was looking at the flowers. The garden had many different plants, but the most beautiful were the flowers. There were red roses, yellow sunflowers, and white lily. They were not the best examples of these flowers. They were small and pale compared to flowers on Earth, but in the middle of a metal space station, surrounded by cold stars and empty space, they were like little miracles. Kira stared at the lily. Her silver eyes moved slowly over the white petals, the green stems, the way the light from above made them glow. She stood so still that she looked like a statue. Do-hyun watched her for a long time. She did not move. She did not go into the garden. She just stood there and looked. Finally, he walked up to her. His footsteps were quiet, but she heard him coming. She turned her head slightly, and when she saw it was him, she did not walk away. "Do you like the flowers?" Do-hyun asked. "Like is an emotional word," Kira said. Her voice was flat and calm. "I am observing the flowers. They are inefficient. They serve no practical purpose. They take up space and resources that could be used for more useful things. But you are still looking at them," Do-hyun said. Kira did not answer right away. She turned back to the lilies. Her silver eyes reflected the white petals. On my world, we do not have such things, she said finally. We removed them long ago. All plants on Valari serve a purpose. They produce food or medicine or building materials. We did not see the logic in keeping plants that only exist to be looked at. Do you miss them? Do-Yoon asked. We cannot miss what we never had, Kira said. The Valari have been without such things for 10,000 years. We have no memory of them. No stories about them. They are simply gone. Do-Hyun felt a strange sadness in his chest. He tried to imagine a world without flowers. A world where every plant was grown only for practical reasons. A world where no one ever stopped to smell a rose or pick a daisy dot. It sounded like a very cold world. Would you like to go inside? He asked. You could see them up close. Touch them if you want. Kira's body became stiff. For a moment, Do-Hyun thought she was angry. But then she spoke, and her voice was different. Softer, almost uncertain. I do not think that would be wise, she said. Such things are dangerous. Dangerous? Do-Hyun was confused. They're just flowers. Kara finally looked at him. Her silver eyes were deep and unreadable. My people removed emotion for a reason, she said. Feelings made us weak. They made us fight each other. They made us do stupid things. When we removed them, we became stronger. We built an empire that spans 100 star systems. We have never had a war in 10,000 years. She paused. But sometimes, I wonder what we lost. When I look at these flowers, I feel something I cannot name. Something that has no logic. Something that serves no purpose. She touched her chest with one pale hand. It is uncomfortable. It is inefficient. And yet I cannot stop coming here. Do-Hyun did not know what to say. He had never heard a Valari speak like this before. He had been told they did not feel anything. But Kira was standing here, telling him that she felt something she could not understand. Maybe that feeling is not dangerous, Do-Hyun said gently. Maybe it is just part of being alive. Kira looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised him. She almost smiled. It was not a real smile. It was just a tiny movement at the corner of her mouth. But it was there. You are very strange, Do-Hyun, she said. You say things that make no logical sense. And yet, somehow, I find myself wanting to hear more. She walked away then, moving silently down the corridor toward her quarters. Do-Hyun watched her go, his heart beating fast in his chest. He thought about what she had said, about a species that had removed all emotion from themselves, about a woman who stood outside a garden, looking at flowers she had been taught were worthless, about the small, unnamed feeling in her chest that she could not explain. The Valari had spent 10,000 years trying to become perfect, logical beings. They had removed love and hate, joy and sorrow, hope and fear. They had become efficient and powerful and cold. But standing outside that garden, looking at White Lily with hungry silver eyes, Kira did not look cold at all. She looked like someone who had lost something precious. Something she did not even know she was missing. Do-Hyun went into the garden and sat on one of the benches. He looked at the lily for a long time, thinking. He was just a junior diplomat. He took notes and brought coffee. He was nobody important in the great galactic community. But maybe, he thought, he could do something important anyway. Maybe he could help Kira find what she had lost. Maybe he could show her that feelings were not weaknesses. That beauty was not inefficient. That sometimes the things that served no practical purpose were the most important things of all. He did not know how to do this. He did not have a plan. But he knew that he wanted to try. Because Do-Hyun believed in something that the Valari had forgotten. He believed that kindness mattered. He believed that beauty was worth keeping. And he believed that even the coldest heart could learn to feel again. He just had to find the right way to show her. The final day of the conference arrived faster than Do-hyun expected. 3 months of meetings, arguments, and negotiations were finally coming to an end. Tomorrow, all the delegates would return to their home worlds. The station would become quiet again, waiting for the next group of diplomats to arrive. Do-hyun felt strange about this. He had spent 3 months watching Kira from across the room. He had talked to her a few times. Short conversations about nothing important. But somehow, she had become important to him. He did not love her. That would be foolish. She was an alien from a species that did not believe in emotions. They had talked maybe 10 times in 3 months. That was not enough to fall in love, but he cared about her. He cared about the way she stood outside the garden, looking at flowers she would not let herself touch. He cared about the small moments when her silver eyes showed something that looked like longing. He cared about the woman who was trying so hard to feel nothing and failing. On the last night before the conference ended, Do-hyun could not sleep. He lay in his cabin and thought about what to do. Tomorrow, Kira would leave. She would go back to her world of pure logic and cold efficiency. She would probably never think about him again. And he would probably never see her again. This thought made his chest feel heavy. He got out of bed and walked through the quiet station. Most people were asleep. The corridors were empty and silent. His footsteps echoed on the metal floor. He found himself at the garden without really planning to go there. The lights were dim, set for nighttime. The plants were dark shapes in the shadows. But even in the low light, he could see the white lily glowing softly. Do-hyun stood there for a long time, thinking. Then he had an idea. It was a simple idea. Maybe too simple. But sometimes, he thought, simple things were the best things. He went to the small supply room next to the garden. The humans who took care of the plants kept their tools there. He found what he was looking for on a shelf in the corner. A block of clear resin. A small mold. A heating tool. He had learned how to do this as a child. His grandmother had taught him. She used to press flowers and save them in resin so they would last forever. She said it was a way to keep beauty from fading away. Do-hyun picked one of the white lily from the garden. He felt a little guilty about this. The flowers were for everyone on the station. But he told himself that this one flower would be used for something important. He worked slowly and carefully. He placed the lily in the mold, arranging the petals so they looked natural. Then he heated the resin until it became liquid and poured it over the flower. He had to wait for it to cool and harden. This took several hours. While he waited, Do-hyun thought about what he would say to Kira. He practiced different words in his head. He thought about how to explain what the gift meant. He worried that she would not understand. He worried that she would think he was foolish. But he also thought about his grandmother. She had always said that gifts were a way of telling someone they mattered. That taking the time to find something special for someone was more important than the gift itself. A gift is not about the thing, she used to say. It is about the giving. When the resin had hardened, Do-hyun removed it from the mold. The lily was now preserved forever inside a clear block. You could see every detail of the petals. You could see the way the stem curved gently. You could see the little yellow center where the pollen lived. It was small enough to fit in his hand. It was nothing expensive or rare. Just a flower and a piece of resin. But to Do-hyun, it was perfect. He did not sleep that night. He sat in his cabin, holding the preserved lily and watching the stars through his small window. He thought about all the things he wanted to say to Kira, about feelings and beauty, and the strangeness of being alive in a universe so big and cold. Morning came slowly. The station lights brightened to signal the start of a new day. Do-hyun got dressed in his diplomat uniform and put the lily in his pocket. The final meeting was short. The delegates signed the last agreements and shook hands or touched tentacles or made whatever gesture their species used to show agreement. Everyone was in a good mood. The conference had been successful. Trade would flow. Resources would be shared. Everyone would benefit. After the meeting, there was a small party in the observation deck. Food and drinks from a dozen different worlds were laid out on tables. The delegates talked and laughed and said goodbye to each other. Dahin did not join the party right away. He looked for Kira. He found her standing alone near the big window, looking out at the stars. She was dressed in the silver robes that all Valari diplomats wore. Her white hair was pulled back from her face. She looked distant and cold, as always. But Dahin knew better now. He knew that underneath that coldness, there was something else. Something that wanted to feel, but did not know how. He walked up to her. His heart was beating fast. His hands were sweating. He felt like a nervous child about to give a valentine to someone he liked. "Kira," he said. She turned to look at him. Her silver eyes showed no expression. "Dahin," she said, "the conference is ending. You must be pleased." "I am," Dahin said. "But I am also a little sad." "Sad?" Kira tilted her head slightly. "Why would you be sad?" "The negotiations were successful." "Because I will miss talking to you," Dahin said honestly. Kira blinked. For just a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Then it was gone. "That is inefficient," she said. "We barely spoke during these 3 months. You have no logical reason to miss me." "Maybe not," Dahin agreed. "But I will miss you anyway." Feelings do not always follow logic. Kira did not seem to know what to say. She just looked at him with those silver eyes. Dahin took a deep breath. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out the preserved lily. He held it out to her on his open palm. "I want to give you something," he said. "Something to remember." Kira looked down at his hand. She stared at the lily in its clear resin block. Her silver eyes widened just a little. "What is this?" she asked. "It is a lily," Dahin said. "From the garden. I preserved it so it would not die. So it would stay beautiful forever." Kira did not reach for it. She just kept staring at it. "Why would you give this to me?" Dahin thought about this question. He had practiced so many answers. He had thought of so many things to say. But now, standing here with Kira, all those practiced words seemed wrong. So he just told her the truth. "Because you looked at those flowers like you wanted to touch them but were afraid to," he said. "Because you stood outside the garden every day, looking in. Because I think you feel things, Kira, things you do not understand. Things your people told you were wrong." He took a step closer. "I am giving you this because I want you to know that those feelings are not wrong. That wanting something beautiful is not a weakness. That you deserve to have something just because it makes you happy, even if it serves no practical purpose." He gently placed the preserved lily in her hands. Her silver fingers closed around it slowly. "Keep it," Dahin said. "And when you look at it, remember that somewhere in the universe, there is a human who thinks you are worth a gift. Not because you are useful, not because it is logical, but just because you matter." Kira held the lily in her hands. She did not speak. She did not move. Dahin waited. He had said everything he wanted to say. Now it was up to her. The party continued around them. Delegates laughed and talked. Music played softly in the background. But in their little corner by the window, everything was quiet. Kira looked at the flower in her hands. Then she looked up at Dahin, and what he saw in her eyes made his breath catch in his throat. The space station horizon floated in the darkness between stars. It was a meeting place for many species from across the galaxy. Humans had only been part of the galactic community for 30 years, and they were still learning about the universe around them. Dahin was 28 years old. He worked as a junior diplomat for the Earth government. His job was simple. He took notes during meetings, brought coffee to the senior diplomats, and made sure all the translation devices were working properly. It was not an exciting job, but Do-hyun did not mind. He was happy just to be in space, surrounded by beings from worlds he had only dreamed about as a child. The conference room on horizon was large and round. Representatives from 12 different species sat at a curved table. They talked about trade agreements, shipping routes, and resource sharing. Do-hyun sat in the back of the room with his tablet, recording everything that was said. He had been doing this work for 6 months now. In that time, he had learned to recognize most of the alien species. There were the tall, blue-skinned Tyranni, who spoke in deep voices. There were the small, furry Becky, who moved their hands constantly when they talked. And there were the Valari. The Valari were different from all the others. Do-hyun looked at the Valari delegate sitting at the far end of the table. Her name was Kira. She had pale silver skin that seemed to glow softly in the station lights. Her hair was white like fresh snow, and it fell straight down her back. Her eyes were the color of polished metal, and they never seemed to blink. Kira was beautiful in a strange way. But that was not what made Do-hyun notice her. What made him notice her was the fact that she always sat alone. During the meetings, the other delegates would talk to each other. They would share jokes, argue about small things, and sometimes even share food from their homeworlds. But Kira never joined them. She sat by herself, spoke only when she had to, and left the room as soon as each meeting ended. Do-hyun had asked his supervisor about the Valari once. The older man had shrugged and said that the Valari were a logical species. They did not believe in emotions. They thought feelings were a weakness that primitive species had not yet evolved past. The Valari had built their entire civilization on cold logic and pure reason. They don't hate us, his supervisor had said. They don't feel anything about us at all. To them, we are just facts, things that exist. Nothing more. Do-hyun found this hard to understand. How could anyone live without feelings? How could anyone look at a sunset, or hear a beautiful song, or hold a newborn baby and feel nothing at all? But as the weeks passed, Do-hyun began to watch Kira more closely. He could not help himself. There was something about her that did not match what his supervisor had told him. One day, during a break in meetings, Do-hyun walked down to the station's observation deck. It was his favorite place on horizon. The deck had a huge window that looked out into space. You could see distant stars, colorful nebulas, and sometimes even passing ships. When Do-hyun arrived at the observation deck, he was surprised to find that he was not alone. Kira was there, standing in front of the window. Her silver eyes were fixed on something outside. Do-hyun stopped walking. He did not want to disturb her, but he was curious about what she was looking at. He followed her gaze and saw that she was staring at a small nebula in the distance. It was purple and gold, with swirls of light moving slowly through it like paint mixing in water. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Kira spoke without turning around. "You are the human who takes notes," she said. Her voice was soft and smooth, like water flowing over stones. "Yes," Do-hyun said. He was surprised that she had noticed him at all. "My name is Do-hyun." "I know your name," Kira said. "I know the names of everyone in the conference room. It is efficient to know such things." Do-hyun nodded, even though she could not see him. "The nebula is beautiful," he said. "I come here to look at it sometimes." Kira was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that Do-hyun did not expect. "Beautiful," she repeated. "That is a human word. My people do not have this word." "You don't have a word for beautiful?" Do-hyun asked. "We have words for things that are efficient. We have words for things that are logical. We have words for things that serve a purpose." Kira finally turned to look at him. Her silver eyes met his brown ones. "But we do not have a word for things that simply please the senses. What would be the purpose of such a word? Do-hyun thought about this. I don't know if beauty needs a purpose, he said slowly. Sometimes things are just nice to look at. Sometimes that is enough. Kira stared at him for a long moment. Her face showed no expression, but Do-hyun felt like she was studying him, trying to understand something she had never encountered before. You are strange, Do-hyun, she said finally. All humans are strange. You feel things that serve no logical purpose. You do things for no practical reason. My people have spent thousands of years removing such inefficiencies from ourselves. Do you think you are better because of it? Do-hyun asked. He was not trying to be rude. He was genuinely curious. Kira turned back to the window. She looked at the nebula again. The purple and gold light reflected in her silver eyes. I do not know, she said quietly. I have never known anything else. She left the observation deck without saying goodbye. Do-hyun stood there alone, looking at the nebula and thinking about what she had said. That night, Do-hyun could not sleep. He lay in his small cabin and thought about Kira. He thought about a species that had removed all emotion from themselves. He thought about what it would be like to look at something beautiful and feel nothing at all. And he thought about the way Kira had stared at that nebula, the way her eyes had followed the swirling colors, the way she had stood there for so long, just watching. For a species that did not believe in beauty, she had spent a very long time looking at something beautiful. Do-hyun did not know what that meant, but he wanted to find out. The next day, when he entered the conference room, he found himself looking for Kira before he looked for anyone else. She was in her usual seat at the end of the table, alone as always. But for just a moment, her silver eyes met his across the room. She did not smile. Her face showed nothing, but she gave him the smallest nod before turning away. It was such a tiny thing. But to Do-hyun, it felt like the beginning of something. He did not know what, but he knew that he wanted to learn more about this strange woman from a world without feelings. He wanted to know if the Valari had truly removed all emotion from themselves, or if somewhere, deep inside, there was still something left. Something that could look at a purple and gold nebula and feel, even for just a moment, that it was beautiful. 1 year passed. Do-hyun had returned to Earth after the conference on Horizon Station. He went back to his normal life. He worked in an office now, processing diplomatic reports from across the galaxy. It was boring work, but it paid well. He had a small apartment with a window that looked out at the city. He had friends. He had a good life, but he thought about Kira often. He wondered what had happened to her. He wondered if she was okay. He wondered if she had gone back to being cold and logical, or if she had kept the feelings that had broken through on that last day. He had no way to contact her. The Valari did not allow personal communications with other species. All messages had to go through official government channels. And Do-hyun was nobody important. He had no reason to send official messages to the Valari Empire. So he just wondered, and hoped, and remembered. Then, one morning, everything changed. Do-hyun was eating breakfast when his communication screen lit up with an urgent message. It was from the Earth Diplomatic Service. They wanted him to come to headquarters immediately. He arrived at the big government building an hour later. His supervisor met him at the door and led him to a conference room on the top floor. Inside, several important people were sitting around a table. Generals, politicians, the head of the diplomatic service herself, and there was something else in the room. Something on the table. It was a box. A simple wooden box with strange symbols carved into it. Valari symbols. "Done," the head diplomat said. "Please sit down. We have something to show you." Do-hyun sat. His heart was beating fast. He did not understand what was happening. 3 weeks ago, a Valari ship arrived at our outer space station. the head diplomat explained. This was unusual. The Velari almost never visit human space. They prefer to meet on neutral ground. She gestured to the box on the table. The ship carried a Velari diplomat. She came alone, without guards or assistants. She asked to deliver this box to Earth. She said it was a gift. Do-hyun stared at the box. A gift? Yes. And she said something else. Something that confused everyone who heard it. The head diplomat looked at Do-hyun with curious eyes. She said the gift should be delivered to a human named Do-hyun. She said you would understand what it meant. Do-hyun's hands began to shake. Was the diplomat's name Kira? The room went silent. Everyone looked at him. You know her? The head diplomat asked. We met at the Horizon Conference, Do-hyun said. She was the Velari delegate. We talked a few times. The head diplomat nodded slowly. The diplomat would not tell us her name. But she did say one more thing. She said to tell you that the flower has not stopped blooming. Do-hyun felt tears forming in his eyes. He reached for the box with trembling hands. May I open it? He asked. Of course, the head diplomat said. It was sent for you. Do-hyun lifted the lid of the box. Inside, resting on soft fabric, was a small crystal. It was clear and beautiful, shaped like a teardrop. And inside the crystal, preserved forever, was something that made Do-hyun's breath catch in his throat. A flower. Not a lily. A different flower. One he had never seen before. It had silver petals that seemed to glow with their own light. It was delicate and strange and impossibly beautiful. There was a note in the box. Do-hyun picked it up with shaking fingers and read it. Dear Do-hyun, the note said. 1 year ago, you gave me a flower. You told me that I deserved something beautiful just because I mattered. I did not understand then. I understand now. When I returned home, everything was different. I could not stop feeling. I could not go back to being empty. At first, I thought this was a curse. I thought you had broken me. But slowly, I realized that you had fixed me. You had woken up something inside me that had been sleeping for 10,000 years. I started talking to others. Quietly. Carefully. I found that I was not alone. There were other Velari who felt things they could not explain. Other Velari who looked at the stars and felt wonder. Other Velari who were tired of being empty, that we began to share our feelings with each other. We formed small groups. We talked about beauty and meaning and love. Things that our people had forgotten long ago. The government did not know at first. But secrets do not last forever. When they found out, I thought they would try to fix us. I thought they would take away our feelings. But something strange happened. The leaders listened. They saw that we were not broken or weak. We were different. We were alive in a way that the old Velari had never been. And so they made a decision. They called it the Do-hyun Protocol. From now on, Velari diplomats are encouraged to exchange gifts with other species. Not for trade. Not for political advantage. Just because it is a kind thing to do. Just because it helps us understand each other. This is small. I know it is small. But small things become big things over time. You taught me that the flower in this crystal is from my home world. It is called a silver bloom. It grows only in the highest mountains, where the air is thin and the nights are cold. My people used to think they were useless because they served no practical purpose. Now we think differently. Now we know that beauty has its own purpose. And we have you to thank for that. I do not know if we will ever meet again. The universe is very big. But I want you to know that you changed my life. You changed my people. With one small gift, you started something that will last for generations. Thank you, Do-hyun. For seeing me. For giving me something when I had nothing. For teaching me that I was allowed to feel. Your friend always, Kira. Do-hyun finished reading the note. Tears were running down his face now. He did not try to hide them. The room was silent. Everyone was staring at him. The head diplomat cleared her throat. "Dohan," she said softly, "what happened between you and this Valari?" Do-hyun looked up at her. He smiled through his tears. "I gave her a flower," he said simply. "That is all. That is all. I just gave her a flower." The head diplomat looked confused. "And that caused all of this? The Valari are changing their entire culture because of a flower?" Do-hyun picked up the crystal with the silver bloom inside. He held it up to the light and watched the silver petals glow. "It was not about the flower," he said. "It was about what the flower meant. It meant that she mattered. It meant that she was worth something. It meant that someone cared about her, not because she was useful, but just because she existed." He looked at the confused faces around the table. "Humans do this all the time. We give gifts. We say kind words. We show people that they matter. To us, it is normal. But to a species that has forgotten how to feel, it was like magic." He put the crystal carefully back in the box. "One small act of kindness. That is all it takes sometimes. One small act can change a person. And a changed person can change a world." The head diplomat was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "The Valari Empire is one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy," she said. "They have 100 star systems, millions of ships, technology we cannot even imagine. And you are telling me that you changed them with a flower." Do-hyun smiled. "Yes," he said. "That is exactly what I am telling you." He stood up, holding the box with Kira's gift close to his chest. "May I go now? I think I want to be alone for a while." The head diplomat nodded. "Of course. But Do-hyun, whatever you did at that conference, thank you. The Do-hyun Protocol might be the most important diplomatic achievement in human history. And you did it by accident." Do-hyun laughed softly. "Not by accident," he said. "I did it on purpose. I saw someone who needed kindness, and I gave it to her. That is not an accident. That is just being human." He walked out of the conference room and took the elevator down to the ground floor. Outside, the sun was shining. People were walking by, going about their normal lives. They had no idea that somewhere across the galaxy, an entire empire was learning how to feel again. Do-hyun held the crystal up to the sunlight. The silver bloom inside seemed to glow even brighter. "Thank you, Kira," he whispered, "for showing me that one person can make a difference. And for showing me that kindness is never too small to matter." He put the crystal in his pocket, close to his heart. Then he walked home through the sunny streets, smiling at everyone he passed. Because that was what humans did. They smiled. They felt things. They gave flowers to strangers and changed the universe one small act at a time. And somewhere among the stars, a silver-skinned woman was smiling too. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Valari were learning what it meant to be alive. All because of a simple present from a junior diplomat who took notes and brought coffee. All because one person decided that kindness was always worth giving. The end.